Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Ankit and you're watching the Indian Express analysis for 18th of February. Today we have in our today's discussion 6 important articles that we are going to cover. The first article, give me a minute to mute this. Well, yes. Am I visible? Am I audible, students? Good evening, Sejal. Good evening, Amar. Hello, Bagas Pinks. Hi, sir. I couldn't attend yesterday's session because I fell asleep. It happens with everyone. Even I feel asleep when I am traveling here to take the class because we have had heavy lunch, right? So, hello, Lydia. So, as I was saying, today we are going to discuss 6 important articles. First one is on US's position. First one is on US's position on Ukraine and NATO, and we understand President Trump has changed US's position on Ukraine and NATO, as earlier US wanted Ukraine to join NATO, but now President Trump, in his phone call with President Putin, he has highlighted that it's rather not so very welcome for Ukraine to join NATO. So we'll try to understand how has US tried to bring more members into NATO and how this has put US and NATO against Russia. Now, these kind of articles, they are important from JS paper 2 perspective because primarily they tilt the way the global affairs is going on, right? So that is why we are going to cover this article. In addition to that, we'll also discuss deposit insurance scheme because currently every bank deposits in our country, it is protected up till 5 lakh rupees. So there has been demand from a large section of people that RBI should offer higher deposit insurance to our banking deposits in our bank. So what is this deposit insurance scheme? How banks are provided safety so that some amount of customers' money they are protected, and how it is ensured or how it benefits customers in general. We'll try to understand this. Now, this kind of article, it is important from GS paper 3, particularly with the sectors of banking, which is a part of economy syllabus. And you understand banking, it is primarily asked in prelims. So that is why such articles become very important from this year's prelims perspective. Then we'll be dealing with Places of Worship Act 1991. I understand we have covered this multiple times, but there is no harm even if we try to revise it, because Supreme Court has highlighted that it will not hear any petition on Places of Worship Act until April this year. Why is Supreme Court taking such a position on Places of Worship Act? We'll try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, such article which has implications on our fundamental right and also on many other aspects of polity syllabus, therefore these are important from GS paper 2 perspective, particularly the polity syllabus. Understood? Then we'll be understanding the process of appointing the new chief election commissioner, because yesterday government announced a new chief election commissioner and also announced appointment of a new election commissioner. So we'll try to understand how the process of appointment of election commissioners and chief election commissioner has changed over the years, and why was actually Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who is leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, he has given his dissent when it comes to appointment of the new chief election commissioner. Then we'll be understanding soybean oil import, as India has witnessed increase in soybean oil imports from an unlikely destination, that was Nepal, because you understand Nepal is not a major soybean manufacturer. So how on earth has actually Nepal tried to import or try to export its soybean into India in form of oil? So we'll try to understand this. And before concluding our today's discussion, we'll look into section 375 and 377 of Indian Penal Code, because Chhattisgarh High Court has given some kind of a judgment on this particular act. So we'll try to understand what is covered in these sections and how the judgment tried to revoke these kind of acts. Understood? Now, good evening, Kalpana. Good to see you after so long. Ashil Patel, good evening. FTY, good evening. Kusum, good evening. How are you? I'm good, Kusum. Give me a minute here. Yeah. Now, good evening, every one of you. Let us start our today's discussion, and you know the drill. I will be making the notes available immediately after the session and on my Telegram channel called as ATS Live. So you have an option either to search ATS Live on the top right hand corner of your mobile app, and also you can scan this QR code. It will take you directly to my Telegram channel, right? Now, Sir thought IPC was replaced by BNS. Yes, you are right. Actually, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita replaced Indian Penal Code, but previously the act, or for the crimes that were committed back then when IPC was in action, you understand people will be applying IPC, not BNS, because BNS applies from the date it was enacted till the future. So any crime that had happened before the enactment of BNS, IPC would be applicable on them. Duty shift timing, sir. Okay, Shri Kalpana, so did I. I am also coming on new timings these days. Thank you for the 4 p.m. class. See, I have no role in shifting this class to 4 p.m. It is all due to my professional obligations, as I have a class from 6 to 9 in the evening. So that is why it would not be possible for me to take 10 a.m. session. Now let us try to solve this question. Some of you have given answers right here. This question I gave you yesterday before the session ended. Consider the following statement regarding the Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. Now this scheme targets 100 districts, yes, right, with highest agricultural productivity and crop intensity. What did I tell you? Why was this scheme enacted? Because these 100 districts who were the backward agricultural districts, here agricultural productivity and crop intensity was the lowest among Indian districts, not the highest. So if this was mentioned lowest, then this statement would have been correct. Otherwise, it is incorrect. Now, the scheme has a dedicated budget allocation separate from existing agricultural scheme. Does this scheme has a dedicated budget allocation? No, it is not. This actually converges all the benefits of existing scheme. That is why this does not have a separate budgetary allocation. Second statement also incorrect. Yes, Amar, you're right. Bagas Pinks, you're right. Shweta, you're right. Option D is the right answer. Good to see you all participating in the discussion. Now, let us move with our first article of the day. This actually appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper, which is today on 16th page of Delhi edition. Now, this article highlights that US recently has changed its position on whether or not NATO should become a, whether or not Ukraine should become a member of NATO. Understand? And why does it matter to global affairs? Let us try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, as you can see, the context of this article is actually the phone call which President Trump of US made to President Putin of Russia. And in this phone call, he categorically rejected Ukraine's attempt as an impractical attempt to become a member of North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, this is actually a military alliance between 32 nations. So, before understanding what this article talks about, let us try to quickly understand what is NATO actually, right? Because such organizations, you will see, have been asked in prelims before. That is why we are covering NATO, because this has been in news throughout the year and for the past few years also. Now, the origin of this NATO, it was founded in 1949. You understand, this was the time period when world was recovering from World War II, right? And this signing of North Atlantic Treaty, otherwise known as Washington Treaty, it was originally aimed as acting as a deterrent of Soviet expansion in Europe. So US, it wanted to prevent Soviets from expanding its influence in Europe. That is why it started this NATO alliance, so as to bring Western European countries primarily closer to US rather than them going closer to USSR. Understood? Now, the origin of this organization, it was founded on the principle of collective defense. What is collective defense? It is mentioned in Article 5th of NATO's treaty or Washington Treaty. If suppose one of the NATO ally is attacked by any adversary, other adversaries will consider it as an attack on themselves, and naturally this is a collective defense, that if you attack one NATO country, every other NATO country will attack on you. So far, until present, the Article 5th, which is the collective defense provision of NATO, it has been only invoked once. And when was it invoked? It was invoked after the 9/11 terrorist attacks on US, as US committed an aggression on countries like Afghanistan by enlisting the support of all its NATO allies. Because attack on US by terrorists were considered as an attack on every NATO member. Understood what is Article 5th? Good evening, sir. Yashi, good evening. Sorry for the delay. No problem, Yashi. As soon as you join, no problem. Now, the headquarters of this NATO, it is located in a city of Belgium known as Brussels, And the nature of this organization, I told you, it is a political and military alliance of 32 countries. But does these 32 countries started when NATO was formed? No. Actually, founding members are only 12. You will see these majorly are the Western European countries. But since then, we have seen NATO has expanded from original 12 members. Now it is an alliance of 32 members. So you understand, 20 odd members have been added since this body was formed. Now the latest member to join NATO was Finland in 2023, and Ukraine, it has formally submitted its application that it wanted to join NATO in 2022, and it received assurances कि भाई आ जाना NATO में. This was in 2023. But you will understand the relationship between Ukraine and NATO is that of a situationship. That Ukraine wants to join NATO. NATO is saying yes, yes, you will join, but the formal application has not been processed yet. Understood? Now, let us understand how the expansion of NATO has been. Now, in 1990, after the Cold War ended between US and Russia, then United States Secretary of State, who is the Foreign Minister of US, he assured Mikhail Gorbachev, who was the leader of erstwhile Soviet Union, that not an inch of NATO's present military jurisdiction will extend into the eastern direction, which means US back in 1990 gave assurance to the USSR that it will not expand eastwards or towards USSR. But in fact, or in reality, you will understand that NATO has since then continued to expand steadily eastward, adding former Soviet allies and even satellite states of Soviet Union into the NATO as its own member. In 1999, this process started, and it started with the countries like Czechia, Hungary and Poland. They eventually became members of NATO, and after that in 2004, more Warsaw Pact countries like Bulgaria, Slovakia, Romania, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, which were a part of former Soviet republics, and even Slovenia, where the First Lady of United States, Melania Trump, is from, all of this became a part of NATO alliance. Further, Albania, Croatia joined in 2009, Montenegro, North Macedonia joined in 2017 and 2020 respectively. So you understand, NATO has expanded its footprint towards Russia, and therefore now you can say NATO is formally or literally at the doorstep of Russia. So let us try to understand this expansion with the help of this map. Now you'll see the various timelines, and you'll understand the countries marked in dark blue here. These are the countries where the NATO began its membership. So these countries highlighted in dark blue, these were the founding members of NATO, and as the color goes lighter, you will see the NATO has expanded eastward. Here it is Russia. Understand? So now NATO is literally at the doorstep of Russia. Here former Soviet republics, here Turkey, all of these are part of NATO, and the colors yellow here, it is Ukraine, who have given their application to seek former membership of NATO. So this is why you would see originally it started from Western Europe, and since then it had moved eastward here, and now it is at the very doorstep of Russia. That Ukraine, which borders Russia, is now has formally given its permission or has formally expressed desire to become the member of NATO. So this is how the expansion of NATO has happened. Now you will understand this expansion of NATO, it presents Russia with the security dilemma. What is security dilemma? Suppose if any country, it is making any action to make it more secure. For any defensive purposes also, if any country takes its action, its adversary country will interpret it that they are committing an aggression on them. So naturally, the adversary country will also try to make its position more strong, and this starts a vicious cycle of hostility. That action of one country will be interpreted as the another country as an hostile measure, and then it will try to undertake its own expansion. For example, suppose if India tries to build its military just to secure its borders. Now what will it be perceived by China and Pakistan? That India is trying to build up its military so that it can commit aggression against Pakistan and China. So naturally these two countries will also start to build up their military so as to match India's attempt, right? So this is how the expansion of hostility happens, that after China and Pakistan expands their military, India will expand its military further, and this cycle will never end. So this similar thing has happened in Eastern Europe and in Russia, that earlier when countries they became a member of NATO, Russia thought they were originally committing an aggression or they were hostile towards Russia. So Russia also interpreted as an aggressive measure. Now Putin in general, he sees NATO as a tool of Western hegemony. That West, in order to protect its dominance, it is trying to enlist the support of many Eastern European nations who are at the very doorstep of Russia. So because of this, Moscow perceives this expansion of NATO as a threat to its own national security, because when NATO and its allies, they will be deploying military near to the borders of Russia, this again is very detrimental to Russia's security interest. But now when Ukraine has formally given its application that please admit me into NATO, this is like this beam from the movie Hera Fairy. Now let us understand how the possibility of Ukraine joining NATO is very detrimental to Russia's interest, and that is why it has been declared as cause belli, that is a cause of concern for Russia. Now Russia currently has more than 2000 kilometers land boundary, land and sea boundary with Ukraine. So whenever, if and when Ukraine becomes a member of NATO, it will allow countries like US to deploy its military into the Ukrainian territory, which you can understand is very dangerous for Russia's national security. So that is why Russia is against expanding of, or it's against Ukraine becoming the member of NATO. And that is why Russia has previously highlighted that if and when Ukraine becomes the member of NATO, it will be considered as an act of declaration of war, and that is why Russia has given its excuse to attack Ukraine. Now, recently in the phone call, when President Trump highlighted that no, there is no possibility of Ukraine becoming the member of NATO, it actually shifts the fundamental position of US. What did I tell you earlier? That NATO, European alliance as well as US, they were in a kind of situationship with Ukraine. They said that why don't you become a member of NATO? So hearing that, Ukraine filed for an application for NATO, but now even the formal application has not been accepted, and that is why even till now Ukraine has not become a full member of NATO because of many political and economic reasons. Understood? So please explain cause belli meaning. Cause belli means a cause of concern, roughly means cause of concern. Now let us try to solve this question. Consider the following statements on North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also NATO. NATO was established after World War II with primary objective of collective defense against external aggression. Yes, it is right. All NATO member countries are required to contribute an equal percentage of their GDP to the alliance's military budget. Now there is actually a guideline that all country must at least contribute, if not more than 2% of their GDP on defense related budget. Now this is just a guideline, it is not mandatory on the NATO countries. So that is why you will see many countries like Germany, they are not contributing even 2% of their own budget on defense related purposes, because they are guaranteed safety by all the other allies of NATO. So that is why second statement becomes incorrect. Third statement, it is a full-fledged, Ukraine is a full-fledged member of NATO with the same rights and obligation as other member states. It is also incorrect. As I told you, they are in a situationship. That means formally Ukraine has not become a full-fledged member of NATO even till now. So second and third are incorrect. First was right. We have to identify correct statement. Option B, one only, is the right answer. Understood? No, Yashi, option B would be right. Yes, Amar, FTY, Shweta, you are right. Kalpana, you are right. Ashil, you are right. Now moving to next article. This article actually appeared in the business page of Indian Express newspaper, and it states, the raising insurance cover for depositors above 5 lakh rupees is under active consideration. And why this news has been reported? Because the Secretary of Department of Financial Services in Ministry of Finance, he has said that government is actively considering increasing the insurance cover limit, which is provided for bank deposits from current 5 lakh rupees per depositor. And this announcement has come in wake of recently clamped down on a Mumbai-based New India Cooperative Bank, which is an urban cooperative bank. And which body has clamped down on it? It is India's regulator of banks, that is the Reserve Bank of India. So this clampdown actually is not important, but what is important from this article, how is actually insurance provides, or is how is actually insurance provided to the deposits in our banking system. So let us understand this. Now there is a 100% owned subsidiary of RBI known as Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation of India. Now, this ensures all deposits and interest income which is in India's bank, and it is India's second or world's second oldest insurer. Now, it is a statutory body which was created as per Act, Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation Act 1961, and it is wholly owned subsidiary of which body? That is of RBI. Now, the insured banks of or banks on whose deposits are insured by DICGC, it is all scheduled commercial banks, foreign banks, and even differential banks like small finance bank, regional rural bank, payment banks, etc. All these deposits, in addition to state cooperative bank, district central cooperative banks, and urban cooperative banks, all the deposits in here are insured by DICGC. However, you have to realize primary cooperative societies, these deposits are not covered by DIGC. Also, deposits of non-banking financial corporations or NBFCs, these are also not covered under the deposit insurance scheme given by this particular body. Understood? Now, what is actually the coverage limit? I told you it is 5 lakh rupees. Now, this covers all the money that is deposited into the bank account, be it principal amount or even the interest that the depositors earn from the bank. Also, the deposits in different branches of a particular bank, these are aggregated actually to come at a whole sum of money, and then only you'll have to understand, even if you have multiple bank accounts in different branches of a bank, but if it belongs to single depositor, only 5 lakh rupees will be insured. So, irrespective of the number of accounts that you have, the sum total of money that you will be insured with is just 5 lakh rupees. Understood? And all the funds held in the same type of ownership and in the same bank are added together before understanding the deposit insurance scheme. Suppose if you have 10 different bank accounts and the sum total of money deposited in the particular bank says is rupees 50 lakh. So, suppose if you have 10 accounts, so will your deposit money be 5 into 10? The answer is no. Sum total insured will be just 5 lakh rupees, irrespective about how many accounts did you have, how many branches in those accounts are there. Okay. I hope I have made this thing very clear. If you have any doubt, Bhaga galat answer deke bhaga. Funny actually, Amar. But Bhaga is a very active participant in these sessions. I have to give him that. Now, DICGC, the insurance premium or the premium for which the insurance is given, it is actually not paid by the customer, but it is actually the bank only who are giving the premium, that is about 12 paisa per 100 rupees of deposit. Now, following banks or following deposits, these are not covered under DICGC. For example, deposits of foreign governments, deposits of both central as well as state governments, interbank deposits, deposits of state land development banks and also state cooperative banks, etc. All these deposits, these are not covered by the DICGC. Only the depositors of population or common people like you and I, those deposits are covered. Now, actually, when is actually DICGC liable to pay this deposit amount? Now, suppose if a bank goes into liquidation, so the DICGC is liable to pay only after the DICGC receives the claim amount, and it has to pay the money within a period of 2 months from the claim that has been provided to DICGC. Understood? So, for same bank, sir? Yes. For same bank, suppose if I have 10 different bank accounts in ICICI Bank and the sum total of money that I have in ICICI Bank in those 10 different accounts, it adds to say 50 lakhs. But will I be covered 10 accounts per into 5 lakh rupees? No. It will be covered that irrespective amount or irrespective of the amount of bank accounts I have, irrespective amount of the total money that may I have in the bank account, the sum total of it will only be 5 lakh rupees. What didn't you understand, Bhaga Spinks? Suppose if I have 3 bank accounts and the money is there 15 lakh rupees or money is there 20 lakh rupees. So, suppose if I have 3 bank accounts, will I be covered 3 into 5 lakh rupees? No. The answer is I'll only be covered with 5 lakh rupees in total, irrespective of whether I have 3 accounts, whether I have 10 accounts. Now consider the following statements about deposit insurance in India. Deposit insurance, it is provided for all scheduled commercial banks and deposit taking NBFCs in India. Is NBFCs covered in deposit insurance? The answer is no. Therefore, first statement becomes incorrect. DICGC is 100% owned subsidiary of RBI which provides deposit insurance. Second statement correct. Premium for the deposit insurance is provided by depositors directly. Incorrect. It is provided to DGC by the banks. Now, insurance amount up to 5 lakh rupees is provided by CGC to the depositors upon the liquidation of the banks. Correct. Now, first and third incorrect, second and fourth are right. We have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option B here is the right answer. Now, as I tell you every day, you have an option to enroll for the Sampoorn batch that we are offering. Sampoorn batch actually provides you with the entire foundation syllabus coverage for the students who want to attempt for 2026 and 24. So you'll be provided with study material, you will be provided for live classes for all the subjects, and also you will be provided with prelims and mains test series so as to solve the practice questions before giving the final exam. In addition to that, you will also be provided with 24/7 mentor support, and the batches currently, the admissions are open. You can go to our website, and to get discounts on the courses, you can use my code called as ATS Live. You know how to apply these codes. You can go to the add promo code section, add ATS Live there, click on apply, then you'll get about 7,500 rupees discount, which is a very large amount of money. Understood? Now let us move to next article of the day. This article actually highlights that Supreme Court of India has actually denied hearing many petitions on Places of Worship Act until April this year. So this is the context of our today's discussion, that as the constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act is being heard by Supreme Court right now. So that is why Supreme Court has said will not hear any pleas before we decide upon the constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act. So this is the official position of Supreme Court on Places of Worship Act right now. Now what is Places of Worship Act? It was actually brought at the time Ayodhya movement was going on, and it prohibits conversion of any place of worship, and it provides for maintenance of the religious character of that place what existed back in 15th of August 1947. So for example, on August the 15th 1947, if there was a mosque, so you cannot change that mosque right now to say temple or a gurudwara, because the places of worship or its religious character, it is protected by the Places of Worship Act. Similarly, if there is a temple which existed on 15th of August 1947, so you cannot convert that temple into a mosque or a gurudwara just because the religious character, it is protected by the Places of Worship Act. Now, some kind of religious places, they are kept out of this provision. First of all is the Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid dispute. It was kept out of the Place of Worship Act because the dispute was ongoing back when it was enacted, and also ancient monuments and archaeological sites that are governed by the provisions of Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act 1947. All of these are kept out of Places of Worship Act. Understood? Now, actually, there are many petitions that have been filed in Supreme Court since 2020, and they have challenged the constitutionality of the Places of Worship Act. And these challenges have been made on two grounds. First of all, they have said that originally when Supreme Court prohibits change in character of any Places of Worship Act, it denies the opportunity of people to seek judicial review, because they say that many places of worship in India, earlier it was of some different religious character, but now since it was destroyed and a new place of worship was established, so originally people should be given an option to change the character of that particular religious site. And when the law of land, it prohibits change of character of any place of worship, it even denies them the opportunity to go to court and change or seek for a change in the character of that place of worship. Also, people say that the cutoff date which was set up of August 15th 1947, it was arbitrary, because in medieval times particularly we saw many temples, they were being destroyed by the intruders into India, and they changed the religious character of these temples and established mosques. So people feel that originally those mosques that are constructed, they should have been temples, and they do not have an opportunity to change the religious character of these mosques into temple. So this is a very tricky and a very controversial issue. That is why the legislation was brought to prevent the changes of character of any religious place so as to preserve communal harmony in India. Understood the logic? Now, there were many disputes that had occurred, as people have highlighted these kind of religious places that exist in many different parts of the country, and they originally seek that these religious places were constructed illegally over the ruins of ancient temples. Now, people sought to create surveys on these temples or mosques so as to ascertain their original religious identity, and for that they sought permissions of the district court. Now, many district courts, for example in Varanasi, in Sambal, they gave the permission for conduction of these surveys, but what we saw that when these surveys were conducted, it led to disturbances in the communal harmony and also led to violence between different sections of people. But in a democratic country, you wouldn't want that to happen, right? Any matter, be it so controversial, but that should be solved peacefully without any violence. So that is why Supreme Court recognized this potential of violence that could happen, and that is why it barred civil courts from registering any fresh suit challenging the ownership and title of a religious place, and it also prohibited these civil courts from ordering surveys to ascertain their religious character in general. And this order is applicable to pending civil suits and any future suits that might be filed in the district court. But Supreme Court of India, it highlighted that such orders, however, it can be challenged on the ground that they violate the phenomena or principles of secularism or also of rule of law. So, if any suit is filed to seek survey or ordering the change of religious character, they should be denied, but it should be allowed that if it violates secularism or rule of law, then such petitions can be allowed. Understood? If you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. But before that, let us solve this practice question. Consider the following statements regarding places of worship provisions 1991 Act. The Act prohibits conversion of religious character of any place of worship as it existed before the passage of the Act. Yes, it is incorrect because it existed before the passage of the Act. No, when it existed back in August 15th, 1947. Understood. So, not before the passage of the Act, but the cutoff date was set off at August 15th, 1947. Second statement, the provision does not apply to ancient and historical monuments covered under the Ancient Monuments, Archaeological Site and Remains Act 1947. Second statement right. First incorrect. We have to identify correct statement. Option B here is the right answer. Now moving to the next article. This article appeared on the very front page of the newspaper, and it highlights the biggest news event that happened yesterday on the news and appeared in today's newspaper. It highlights that a new election commissioner has been appointed by a panel which includes Prime Minister, another Union Minister who is Home Minister, and also the Leader of Opposition. So let us try to understand how the election commissioners are appointed in India. Now, President of India, she appointed new election commissioner, chief election commissioner as Mr. Gyanesh Kumar, who will be the new chief election commissioner, and Dr. Vivek Joshi as the new election commissioner in India. And this announcement came hours after the meeting that happened of the panel, and this meeting, the leader of opposition, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, he gave his dissent that he wanted to defer the appointment until the Supreme Court decides on the legality of the act which was passed by the government. So let us try to understand how the appointments of Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners were made before and how this process was changed recently. Now if you look at the screenshot of the constitution that I've put here, it is Article 324 that decides upon how to appoint any chief election commissioner. Now give me a minute, I'll change the color of the pen. Now the superintendence, direction and control and preparation of electoral rolls and conduct of all elections in India, be it elections to Lok Sabha, Raj Sabha, elections to the office of President and Vice President, it is currently undertaken or regulated by which body? Election Commissioner of India, and this is provided in the Article 324. And also, sorry, it should be 324. Now the election commission, it consists of chief election commissioner and any such member of election commissioners as president may from time to time fix. So what is the composition of election commission now? It consists of one chief election commissioner and two election commissioners. Understood? So there are three election commissioners now, one of which is dedicated as chief election commissioner. Now moving to the next screenshot, the process of, let us go before this. Now, if you look at this particular screenshot, it says that this appointment process shall be subject of provision of any law which is passed by the Parliament of India. But earlier, there used to be no law which regulated the process of appointment of Chief Election Commissioner. So, before or when there was no law, actually the appointment to the office was made on the recommendation of Prime Minister himself. So, this created a whole set of problem as many petitions were filed in the Supreme Court that there is actually no law which is passed by the Parliament to regulate the appointments of the election commissioners. So that is why Supreme Court heard this matter and said that until or unless the law is passed by the Parliament, the election commissioner, they can be appointed by a committee of 3 persons which involve Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha and the Chief Justice of India. But before any new appointments could be made by this new committee by Supreme Court, the Government of India, it enacted this particular law which is known as the Chief Election Commissioners and Other Election Commissioners Appointment, Conditions of Service and Terms of Office Act 2003. Now, if you look at this act, it states that election commission, it consists of chief election commissioner and any such number of election commissioners as the president may time to time fix. And these people, they are appointed by which functionary? These are appointed by President of India under his or her hand and seal. Understood? Now, if you look at the persons who are eligible to be appointed as the Chief Election Commissioner, they should be among the person who have held post equivalent to the rank of Secretary to the Government of India, and they should be person of integrity, and also they should have an experience in management and conduct of elections. Understood the eligibility criteria of persons who are appointed as the Chief Election Commissioner. Also, if you look at it, first of all, there will be a search committee which will consist of Cabinet Secretary and 2 other members not below the rank of Secretary to the Government of India. They will first decide upon which people are eligible, and then they will present the name or the list of names for the consideration of the selection committee. So first was a search committee which is headed by Cabinet Secretary. They prepare a list of names and they send this list of names to the search committee which consists of Prime Minister of India, Leader of Opposition of the Lok Sabha and also Union Cabinet Minister who is nominated by the Prime Minister himself, and the Prime Minister has nominated Mr. Amit Shah, who is also the Minister of Home Affairs. Understood? So these 3 people decide upon whether from the list of names that have been given by search committee, which of these people will be appointed as the Chief Election Commissioner or the election commissioners. Now, in case there is no leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, then the leader of single largest opposition party will be considered as the leader of opposition for this selection committee. Understood? Now, the Chief Election Commissioner and the election commissioners, they serve for a tenure of 6 years from the date they start holding the office or up till the age of 65 years, whichever expires earlier. So they are retired if the one of these 2 conditions are met. Now, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners, they are not eligible for reappointment so as to preserve their integrity so that they do not become vestige of the government or any political party. And also, when an election commissioner is appointed as the Chief Election Commissioner, so if he or she will not have a fresh 6-year tenure, but his entire tenure in the election commission will be considered to decide upon whether or not he or she has hold the office for 6 years or 65 years. So beyond this, we also follow Current Affairs magazine. Ideally, you should not. If you are watching this on a daily basis, you will have sufficient material which will not require you to go through a Current Affairs magazine. But in case you are enrolled in some coaching and they are providing you with the Current Affairs magazine, go through them quite quickly. Okay? Bharat Kalor, very nice analysis. I appreciate your words. Thank you, Bharat. Now, let us try to solve this question. Consider the following statements of the appointment of Chief Election Commissioners in India. The Chief Election Commissioner is appointed by President of India. Yes, this is correct. The tenure and conditions of service of election commissioners are determined by the Constitution. It is incorrect because it is determined by the Act which is passed by the Parliament. Constitution only says that there shall be a Chief Election Commissioner and any number of election commissioners that the President from time to time may fix. So, and rest of the condition that is discharged by the Act which is passed by the Parliament. And the decisions of Election Commission of India are taken by majority of among the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners. Actually, yes, there are 3 people and one of them is designated as Chief Election Commissioner, but the decision made by them are made by majority. So, if 2 election commissioners want to make particular decision, if this is disagreed by CEC, then the decisions of 2 election commissioners will prevail, but just because it is a majority decision. Okay. So, first incorrect, second right, second incorrect, first right and third right, and we have to identify correct statement. Option C here is the right answer. Understood? Now let us move to another article. This article actually appeared in the Indian Express newspaper yesterday, but as we had 6 articles yesterday to discuss, so this did not give us the time. So now today we have the time to discuss this particular article. This article actually says that there is 14 times jump in soybean oil imports from Nepal, and why it has triggered red flags in India, because you understand Nepal is not a major manufacturer of soybean. So how on earth is Nepal able to export its soybean into India? Let us try to find this one out in our today's discussion. Now the context, as I have already told you, because Kathmandu is only a marginal producer of the soybean commodity. So how on earth is actually Kathmandu able to export it to India? Now for that, let us first understand what is the soybean crop. It is a leguminous crop which has high protein or is known for high protein and oil content, and therefore it has become a major source of edible oil production. Now it is also acts as a protein rich animal feed. As you can understand, many industries, they use it to feed animals. So the meal for soybean is used for animal feed, and also these are used in industrial products like manufacturing of biodiesel. Now the growing conditions in which these soybean prosper, it is primarily a kharif crop which grows well in fertile, well drained and loamy soil. Now loamy soil, these are dense soils as against the grainy soils which are available in the northern part of the country. Now this requires an optimal temperature which is of about 20 to 30 degrees centigrade during the growing season. So that is why it is a kharif crop. If it were to require lesser amount of temperature, then you will realize it is primarily grown in Rabi season, which is the winter season. Understood? So that is how you remember. If it is a kharif crop, it must be grown in higher temperatures. Now the top 3 soybean producing states in India are Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Rajasthan, whereas top soybean producing countries in the world, the largest producer is Brazil, followed by US, Argentina, and also India and China. These are major producers, but when it comes to first, second and third, India and China are not one of them. Understood? Now let us understand how India imports soybean. Now total soybean imports in India, it increased last year from 19% during the time of April to November 2024, which is a period of roughly 6 months, and it reached the figure of nearly $3 billion, up from $2.5 billion in the same period last year. Now the imports primarily in India, they are done from Brazil. However, still, as the imports increased overall, imports from the largest producer of soybean, that is Brazil, it declined in India during same period, dropping to $549 million from about $850 million. So the change in imports in India was actually compensated by Nepal. Now in general, in order to protect its domestic manufacturer of soybean, what India did, that it raised the basic customs duty on refined oil imports into India like palm oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, etc. by 20%. However, despite this increase in duty, there was a significant surge in soybean oil from imports from Nepal. And why this increase, despite the increase in basic custom duty? Because imports from Nepal, they are not having any custom duties levied on it, because Nepal is a poor nation and also very close country to India. Now the International Food Policy Research Institute, it had said that Nepal's lower tariff on edible oils as compared to India, it seeks that many countries, they export their oils to Nepal. These are reprocessed and repacked and then they are sent into India because any imports from Nepal, they are not levied any custom duty. Whereas if the imports are coming from Brazil, US, etc., they will be levied higher customs duty of about 20%. Understood? This is why these countries are using the route of Nepal so as to import their own palm oil or soybean oil into India. Now, Nepal in general, it enjoys a 30% tariff advantage because first of all, zero duty is levied on imports from Nepal as per the provisions of Indo-Nepal Treaty of Trade, and this treaty of trade provides that no imports from Nepal will be levied any custom duty except certain goods like cigarettes, alcohols and cosmetics, they will be levied customs duty on. And that is why it has raised a cause of concern in India, because many countries they are misusing the route of Nepal so as to send their goods for cheaper cost into India, circumventing the overall increase in customs duty by India. Understood? Now let us move, or before moving to the last article of the day, let us try to solve this question. Please solve this question and let me know the answers in the comment section. This is a homework for you. I will be dealing with this answer before the start of tomorrow's lecture. Now, let us move to the last article of the day. This article also appeared in the Indian Express yesterday on page 12, and it stated that the Chhattisgarh High Court has extended the exception which is provided for marital rape even for the considerations of Article 3, Section 377 of the IPC. So, what is actually 375 and 377? Let us try to understand this in our today's discussion. Now, Section 375 of Indian Penal Code, it deals with the offences of rape. Now, it defines rape as a sexual intercourse which happens with a woman without her explicit or implicit consent. Now, there is an exception which is provided to married couples, that even if a man has a sexual intercourse with his or his own wife, even without her consent, that will not be categorized as a rape. So, this is an exception given in the Article 375. Now, this exception is provided until a case that if the wife is over 15 years of age, then the provisions of rape will not be applicable to the married couples. Now, there were changes that were made by the new act, that is Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, that states that the original age which was provided 15 years of age in IPC, it has changed or it has increased from 15 to 18 years of age by the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and everything else has been kept the same. Understood? Now, there is similar article called as Article 377 that leads or that deals with unnatural offences, and this section of IPC, it criminalizes carnal intercourse against the order of nature with any man, woman or animal, and it was originally aimed to criminalize the acts of homosexuality. Now, this does not include the exception that was given to marital rape. So, for example, if a man undertakes an unnatural sexual activity with his or her own wife, the protection was not extended under Article 377. Understood? Now, the Chhattisgarh High Court, in their judgment, they have highlighted that the Article 3, Section 375, it included the exception that even in cases of non-consensual sex between married couples, the provisions of rape will not be applicable. And it states that similar kind of exception should be provided even under Article Section 377, because otherwise it will contradict the very principle of Section 375. So, according to Chhattisgarh High Court, even the unnatural sexual intercourse between a man and his wife will not be punishable just because under Article 377 or Section 377, sorry, because Section 375 provides a exception to the married couples. Now, Section 377, a non-consensual act, the High Court of Chhattisgarh, it noted the fact that earlier any even consensual unnatural offences or unnatural sexual acts that happened between couples, including the homosexual couples, they were prohibited by the courts of the country. But since then, Supreme Court of India has decriminalized consensual unnatural offences between the couples of same sex. So that is why such kind of an act, it was decriminalized just because of the fact that these acts were consensual or with permission. So similarly, such consensual or even non-consensual acts between a married couple can be prohibited or can be exempted from being punishable. And court held that if unnatural sex occurs between the consenting married partners under 377, then the punishable offences under section 377 won't be applicable. Now this is a very big judgment because it changes the fact, as earlier many married women, when they felt violated of their own body and they experience non-consensual sex with their own married partners, they have a recourse of justice under the section 377. So they used to take this route because the punishable offences under 375, it was not applicable on married couples. However, after this ruling, they will no longer have an option to seek the recourse under 377 because now 377 is also protected by the martial rape immunity. Understood the complications with this article? If you have any doubt, now is the time you can ask me. Why imports like soybean, pulses, etc. increasing in India? Well, actually, India has a very bad relationship with oil. Be it crude oil, be it eating oil, India does not produce them and it consumes them in large numbers. So that is why they have to import them. Now, since you have no doubt right now, we'll conclude our today's session. The notes will be available as usual on my Telegram channel called as ATS Live. I will make them available as soon as the session ends. Good to see you all. We'll meet tomorrow at 4 p.m. like every day. So until then, keep revising, keep writing, and also please ensure to write your answers. And the other aspirants who have submitted their answers, please make sure to evaluate them and help them, as this community that we are developing will eventually benefit each and every one of you. So this was all from my side for today's discussion. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a very great evening and a good night.